fire, and of course, fueled by oxygen, it's a holocaust. So we could see the guys, some of them bailing out. I don't remember how many chutes we saw. But what really impressed me, this plane kept flying right along beside us, and the pilot, who I had flown a practice mission with, tall, slim guy, real tall, he crawled out the pilot window. Because of the fire, I'm sure he couldn't get out. I don't know how a guy even got through that pilot window, and reached inside and got his parachute, chest back, and slid off of the wing. And I didn't know whether he got his chute on or not. In fact, it was reported that he did not. Later, well, a year or so later, I found out he had made it to the ground and no problem.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't register what I had seen or hadn't seen. We had our wingman right opposite us. We were in the target area and hadn't been hit ourselves. And all of a sudden, there was something that caught my attention on our right side. Looked over there, and the plane that was supposed to have been there wasn't there anymore. I looked around to see, well, maybe it went up a little higher, and I looked backwards and there wasn't any behind. I looked down and I couldn't find that plane's position. I looked again and I could see parts of the plane falling and gotten a direct hit. I guess must have been the whole charge or two from Akak. Must have hit him right in the, blew him up. That was, there it was and there it wasn't. I don't think there was a soul probably got out of that plane.
By the end of the war, over 12,000 B-17s had been produced. The B-17G, with its additional twin-gun chin turret, was the most numerous version, with 8,680 being built. The 8th Air Force, which used the vast majority of the B-17's Boeing cranked out, lost 5,200 bombers during the war. Over 50,000 of the 8th Air Force's pilots, navigators, bombardiers, gunners, and radio operators were killed, wounded, or captured during the course of the strategic bombing campaign. Without the incredible ruggedness of the B-17, these shocking numbers would have been even higher. Was it worth it? For decades, historians have argued the pros and cons of the strategic bombing campaign in Europe. All agree that the B-17 didn't win the war against Germany alone, as the bombing advocates had theorized before the war, but the B-17 still played a key role in the victory over Hitler. The bombers wrecked Germany's oil industry, ensuring the defeat of the Wehrmacht by the Allied armies. More importantly, however, the B-17s drew out the Luftwaffe in the spring of 1944 during Big Week and the Berlin raids. In doing so, the bombers helped achieve complete air superiority over Western Europe as the German interceptor force ruined itself defending Berlin from the thousands of flying fortresses and the fighters the 8th Air Force was able to put into the air. This bloody victory set the stage for the Normandy invasion. For had the Allies not had complete control of the air, D-Day might never have taken place. When the war ended in Europe, the B-17's heyday came to an end. By 1945, the Flying Fortress was a 10-year-old design. Rugged, tough, and always a warrior, the B-17 nevertheless could not survive in a world that would soon see jet fighters, atomic weapons, and guided missiles. The 8th Air Force's 2,000 B-17s were collected together in fields all over England, where they were either flown back to the United States or scrapped on site. And thus, the B-17's last contribution may have been its most significant. These majestic planes were melted down and their metal used to help rebuild Western Europe. The destruction they had once wrought was repaired by their very skins, a noble end indeed. Today, only a few B-17s exist to remind future generations of the air war that raged so many years ago. Each flying fortress is a treasure, for they remain lonely signposts of the struggle that once raged in the bloody skies of Europe. Battles on land leave scars in the earth to mark their passage into history, but the sky over Europe reveals no secrets and tells no tales. The sky remains unchanged, unchangeable, as it had for the eons prior to those black-torn years of World War II. In these skies, titans once clashed. An epic struggle for survival unfolded amidst these clouds with stakes so high, entire nations would be destroyed. Young men by the hundreds of thousands were flung into the maelstrom of this desperate battle as the fighting reached its bitter climax. Over 60,000 young Americans and Germans would never return home. Their lives snuffed out in the air over Nazi-held Europe. In the end, through their courage to clamber aboard their faithful B-17s for mission after mission, these men of the mighty 8th Air Force helped free Europe from the dark tyranny of Hitler's Germany. Their legacy of freedom and of peace will never be forgotten.